You ever notice how the food in your fridge doesn't really go bad anymore? Like that bread from 2 weeks ago is still suspiciously soft. The strawberries look perfect for days. Your grandma's tomato sauce would grow fuzz in 72 hours, but that store-bought jar, still good 6 months after opening, apparently. We've been told this is progress, better preservation, less waste, modern science winning. But there's a psychology to why nobody's asking the obvious question. What exactly are we eating, and why does our body seem to know something our mind doesn't? Here's the thing. We've outsourced our food instincts to expiration dates and ingredient lists we can't pronounce. Humans spent millennia developing an intuitive sense of what's food and what's not. Smell, texture, the way something changes over time. But somewhere between the 1950s and now, we accepted that food could be eternal, that bright colors were normal, that nothing should ever rot. And we stopped listening to that quiet discomfort in our gut. Not the digestive kind, though that too, but the instinctual kind. The part of you that knows something's off, but can't quite articulate why. The modern food system isn't just changing what we eat. It's changing how we think about eating itself. And the psychology behind our acceptance of this is way more interesting than any ingredient label. Most people don't realize they're experiencing what psychologists call baseline shift. It's when your reference point for normal gradually moves without you noticing. Your grandparents thought food came from farms and spoiled. Your parents thought food came from stores and lasted a while. You think food comes from apps and basically never expires. Each generation's normal would seem dystopian to the previous one, but it happens slowly enough that we adapt. The tomato that tastes like crunchy water isn't a bad tomato to you. It's just what tomatoes taste like now. You've never known different. This is where it gets interesting. There are essentially 3 types of people navigating modern food, and each one reveals something different about how we cope with cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when reality contradicts what we believe. First, there's the type who've fully committed to convenience über alles. They'll defend processed food with the same energy someone might defend a political position. It's fortified with vitamins. People live longer now than ever. Organic is just marketing. And look, they're not entirely wrong, but here's what's actually happening psychologically. They've resolved their dissonance by deciding the system is fine, therefore they're fine, therefore there's nothing to examine. It's a protective mechanism, because if they admitted something was off, they'd have to change their entire relationship with food, and that's exhausting. So they don't. They rationalize. They point to the one study that supports them and ignore the 50 that don't. This isn't stupidity. It's self-preservation. The alternative is admitting they've been slowly poisoning themselves and their families with convenience, and that's a heavy door to open. Then there's another type, the hyper-aware, bordering on paranoid. These are the people reading every label, eliminating food groups, convinced that everything is toxic, and they're not wrong either. But here's the twist. Their anxiety about food has often become more damaging than the food itself. They've swung so far into control that they've created a different prison. The psychology here is fascinating because it's the same mechanism as the first type, just inverted. Instead of resolving dissonance by accepting everything, they resolve it by rejecting everything. Both are ways of establishing certainty in an uncertain system. Both are exhausting. And both miss something crucial. Because there's a third group, quieter and more unsettling. These are the people whose bodies just know. They eat the same meals they always have, but they're hungrier. They consume more calories but feel less nourished. They have weird inflammation, brain fog, energy crashes that don't make sense. And when they mention it, they're told it's stress, it's aging, it's in their head. But here's what nobody wants to say out loud. Their body is responding to something their mind hasn't caught up to yet. The food has changed, not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually. A little more processing here, a different stabilizer there, crops bred for shelf life instead of nutrition, death by 1,000 tiny optimizations. This is what's called the shifting baseline of satiety. Your body evolved to extract specific nutrients from specific foods. But when those foods are engineered to be hyper-palatable instead of nutritious, your hunger signals get confused. You're full but not satisfied. You're eating but not nourished. And because this happens slowly, you don't think, The food changed. You think I changed. I'm broken. I need to try harder. The real psychology here isn't about food at all. It's about trust. We've been conditioned to trust systems more than our own bodies. When your instinct says, something's wrong with this, but the label says FDA approved, and the commercial says, part of a balanced breakfast, and everyone around you is eating it without question, you override yourself. You gaslight yourself. This is what decades of food marketing has accomplished, not just selling products, but selling the idea that your own sensory experience is less reliable than their claims. And here's where it gets darker. The companies making these changes know exactly what they're doing. They have food scientists whose entire job is to engineer bliss points, combinations of salt, sugar, fat, and texture that override your natural satiety signals. They're not trying to nourish you, they're trying to make you buy more. And it works because they're hacking systems that evolved over millennia with stimuli those systems never encountered in nature. Your body doesn't have a defense against hyperpalatability because nothing in nature is hyperpatable by accident. Things taste good because they're nutritious, but we've severed that connection and we're surprised when people become addicted to food. The contrarian truth nobody wants to hear. You're not weak for struggling with modern food. The food is designed to make you struggle. You're not broken because you're always hungry, always craving, always unsatisfied. The food is broken, and accepting this isn't pessimism, it's liberation. Because once you stop blaming yourself, you can start actually addressing the problem. Most people are trapped in this weird loop where they diet, fail, blame themselves, try harder, fail again. But they're using willpower to fight neurochemistry, and neurochemistry always wins. You can't outdiscipline a dopamine hack. You can't outthink a bliss point. What you can do is recognize you're in a rigged game and maybe stop playing by their rules. So here's the real question. What happens when you start trusting your body again? When you notice that the food that makes you feel good often looks boring, spoils quickly, doesn't come with health claims on the package? When you accept that convenient and nourishing have become opposites in the modern food system, you don't have to become the paranoid type who eliminates everything. You just have to become the honest type who admits when something feels off. Your body knows. It's been trying to tell you. The fatigue, the cravings, the inflammation. It's not failing you. It's responding accurately to what you're giving it. Maybe it's time to listen. If this hit different, there's more where this came from. Subscribe for more psychology that actually makes sense of your life. And be honest in the comments. Have you noticed your relationship with food feels different than it should? You're not alone in that feeling.